After all the hype that you've heard over the course of the last 2 years about the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, we're proud to announce our new venture, the Women of Conservation Calendar, that showcases and celebrates the women that helped defeat Proposition 127. 14 months of the calendar of all of the women that helped, plus more, the convention dates, deadlines, draw application dates, commission meetings, and things going on at the Colorado State Capitol. This is an opportunity to support CRWM and the efforts that we continually work on through the Colorado State Capitol, Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission, and to address all of the ballot issues that continually arise. We've got some fantastic sponsors that help prop up and just showcase who these women are. Rodeo queens, barrel racers, houndswomen, general sportsmen, mothers, and every avocation you could think, from archery hunting to muzzleloading to rifle hunting and waterfowl as well. These women stuck their necks out to help save the hunt. Get it for yourself. It makes a great gift. Make sure you get it before Christmas, and look at all the other important dates that are coming up. $24.95, SaveTheHuntColorado.com.
Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, hunters, trappers, sportsmen and women, politicians, even the animal activists that are following us and trying to get in on some of the information that we're trying to provide and see what they can do to maybe educate themselves or maybe be a little bit more confrontational when they get a chance to testify on whatever body they decide to present to. We got a little bit of an update here, and I wanted to cover a few things and kind of bring everybody up to speed. A lot of things have happened over the course of the last several weeks, and while we've been kicking out some of our previously scheduled product, I hope you guys have had a chance to look at some of the previous episodes of Through the Gates and become educated on some of the stuff. We had a great episode with Rustic Living down in Alamosa, Monte Vista area about their log furniture production and how they actually acquire the material to be able to make that specific product. And I think Randy did a really good job of synthesizing and hypothesizing the way that they get the stuff, because there's been some criticism from people about gathering natural material off the forest lands, or even off of private land for that matter. And Randy does a really good job of explaining that what they utilize is from dead standing material of aspen groves. And without that, it'd continue to burn. And like he said, it's either going to be used or it's going to burn in one way, shape, or form. It's not just going to stand there forever. And cutting it down utilizes not only the resource, but it brings in a lot of different things for wildlife and habitat conservation as well. We also did a podcast recently on the gator farm down in the San Luis Valley. Kind of an interesting dynamic. We were down there doing the thing for Rustic Living, and we thought, what the hell? See if these guys would be interested in telling us about the gator operation that they have, the reptilian operation that they have. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth going down to take a look, because it's a gem. It's a hidden gem in Colorado. These guys are raising alligators to roughly 8,000 feet, and they have a hell of a setup with some artesian wells and hot springs down there. And I would encourage everybody to take a look at that. But without further ado, I will jump into today's agenda that we've got on some different things. As I said, we've been really busy. Everybody's known about the resignation of Director Jeff Davis from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Agency. And Jeff took another position with the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. And as reports came out, people recognized that maybe Jeff was forced out. And based upon the information and the reports that came out through the media, that's exactly what the case had been. Mr. Davis had tried to do what he thought was best in this tumultuous landscape. And whether you want to call it undermining or manipulation, or whether you want to call it just maybe poor representation or poor leadership, whatever you decide to do, the proof is in the pudding. And when Davis resigned, he did so essentially forcefully. You can leave on your own accord, and we can put you in this position, which I consider to be a May 15th or May 1st timeline. It's a stipend. It's a severance pay that turns around and gets Mr. Davis on his feet to do whatever he decides to do. And I would be surprised if Jeff stayed on after May when that agreement would expire. But if he does, hopefully his expertise and being able to be a senior policy strategist or advisor to the executive director of the Department of Natural Resources, Mr. Dan Gibbs, I would hope that Mr. Gibbs would listen to him when he gives recommendations, whether it has to do with wolves, whether it has to do with mountain lions or fur bearers. But we all know where the ultimate leadership messages are coming down from. And they're coming down from the higher ups in the governor's office, the governor himself, and First Gentleman Marlon Reese. If that comes as a surprise to you, then you haven't been paying attention over the course of the last 8 years, but specifically the last 2.5 years since Director Davis took the office in 2023. So the new job opening has come up to fill that. That pay scale is from $195,000 to $215,000, I think is what it is, to be able to run the agency, which there's been a lot of questions in the conservation community about who would be dumb enough to stick their head in the noose of this administration over the course of the next, let's say, 14 months, because we know Governor Polis is out January 12th, 2027, so mark your calendars. But we know Governor Polis is out. That means Marlon Reese is going to go out, so I don't think Marlon's going to be running for governor. But who knows? Maybe he'll throw his hat in the ring and they'll figure out some way to turn around and kick Bennett to the side or kick Weiser to the side or kick one of the Republican candidates to the side. But we have a 14-month period that we have to deal with whomever would get hired for that specific position. Now, I would think that somebody like Major General Laura Clellan, who is in the acting director position, who has nothing to lose by staying or by going, would be a prime candidate to be able to stay in that position for a short period of time. But she has indicated to the conservation community, and maybe to others as well, that she intends on staying as long as she can help right the ship, keep it afloat, and not interested in pursuing this as a full-time venture. Well, anybody that takes this position would have to realize that it's probably not likely going to be a full-time venture, depending on what gubernatorial candidate is successful, is elected by the people of the state of Colorado, and that is hired, and how long they can put up with this undermining manipulation, unless they're actually put in there to continue this plan of action from the governor, the first gentleman, and eventually even Executive Director Dan Gibbs with the Department of Natural Resources. So pay attention to that. Maybe some of you are interested in applying. Maybe you have people that would be suitable that don't have anything better to do on their time except for get the crap slapped out of them every time they open their mouth to do something right. So Murphy Robinson, the sports person's rep, also resigned. Anybody that didn't pay attention, they should go back and watch the episode a couple episodes ago of Murphy Robinson on Through the Gates podcast. We did that in conjunction with the commission meeting in Sterling. And Murphy gave us a really good in-depth inside perspective of what he was dealing with and what they were trying to accomplish in his tenure. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Robinson decided to resign himself because of a conflict of interest, that he's got contracts in the works for RFPs and potential things that he might be able to work on for his business and his family and his livelihood. No discredit to Mr. Robinson at all. I think Murphy's a great stand-up guy, but he also had said on other occasions before, during, and after that he didn't have time for the foolishness, and he was trying to make sure that he was doing what was right for his particular interest, but also for the sportsmen and women of the state of Colorado, because he didn't want to put himself into jeopardy. So that position is also being considered, and there has been interviews from the sports persons community. They call them sports persons. So if you take offense to that, refer to yourself as whatever the hell you want to refer yourself to. Sportsman, sportswoman, sports person, doesn't really matter. But it's a sports person's rep. And hopefully we get some suitable interviews out of what we know as suitable candidates that are hoping to put their head on the chopping block for the course of the next 14, 15 months. And then we'll see what new gubernatorial candidates or the new governor would do at that point in time. So if you're interested, go to the boards and commissions side of the state website, and you can go all the way down. There's thousands of positions available, but only one sports person position available. And you can go through that. And if you need any other information pertaining to that, reach out to us through the SaveTheHuntColorado.com website. But I think you guys are probably smart enough to figure out how to put your name in the hat for something. And it has to be a Republican or an independent. And it's not because they're trying to favor one side or the other. It's the way the statutory obligations are and how many people can serve from different parties and so forth, not just on the Parks and Wildlife Commission, but on a variety of other things as well. There's supposed to be some sort of even balance or equity that they're trying to adhere to. We have the Sportspersons Roundtable meeting that's coming up this week, coincidentally, that I chair. This will be the first roundtable meeting that we've had virtually since Dean Riggs as vice chair and myself as chair have taken. And I'm looking forward to welcoming some of the new roundtable representatives that have been chosen to represent different regions of the state. So I'll be reporting on that with the Through the Gates podcast as we move forward on that as well. And then as I'm thinking about it, on Wednesday the 17th, depending on when this podcast comes out that day, there's also a sportsman's legislative update that we'll be having, and there'll be invites on all of our social media stuff. So make sure you look at that on Instagram and Facebook if you want to attend that particular meeting. We have legislators, and we have Francis Silva Blaney as a commissioner, and we have an update from DNR and CPW, and then Kathleen Curry. I myself will be emceeing that, and then Jenny Burby with the Colorado Outfitters Association will also be helping to moderate and facilitate that. Beaver Management Plan. December 17th is the last day to be able to comment on the statewide Beaver Management Plan. If you haven't read it, I know that it's just riveting information, but if you haven't read it, you can see what we have here. It's a 125-page document that has been compiled with about 80 different stakeholders about beaver management in the state of Colorado. If you responded to the public survey in the comment section on engagecpw.org, great. Thank you very much. If you haven't, and there's time, by the time that you read this, and we're going to put out another social post before this as well, get online and comment about the Beaver Management Plan, because without our side continuing to comment on certain things, a lot of times people don't even know that it's there to comment on. But it's how beavers will continue to be managed in the state of Colorado for what they call, not the beavers don't call it this, climate resiliency, biodiversity, and because beavers have been deemed a keystone species. Now, I got to throw something in real quick. I think every species in the state of Colorado has an important value, no matter what species it is. However, I believe that I, as a sportsman and as a consumptive user, also have a great value because of the value that I provide to the management opportunities of that wildlife species, not just beavers, but 961 species of wildlife in the state of Colorado. We have the opportunity to chime in on things like this because of perspectives from the agriculture community and the wildlife watching community and even the animal rights community. They're putting this whole thing together because they don't want beavers harvested in any way, shape, or form. I tend to feel that the beaver population is not only suitable, but it's very, very enhanced compared to what it was 200 years ago. When the trappers, the explorers, the guides, the frontiersmen were extirpating resources, not through regulated management, not through guidelines of the North American model of wildlife conservation, but because of greed and self-interest. That doesn't happen in today's environment. And people like you and I need to be able to turn around and comment on these things to let our perspectives be known and heard and documented and accounted for. EngageCPW.org, not just for the Beaver Management Plan, but all the other things that are going on that you might want to have input to. You don't want to go to a commission meeting. You don't have time to go to a commission meeting. You don't know the agenda on a commission meeting. Go to EngageCPW.org. Those are the places that you can continually put your 2 cents, your value into the conversation. There's also a furbearer stakeholder process that's going on that will be heard in March at the commission meeting in Denver, along with the final side of the Beaver management, the conservation and strategy management. And I would encourage anybody that's on our side of the fence to pay particular close attention, because I think these things could set the tone and the narrative for how things play out during the rest of the Polis administration. We already know that the commission is not so much in a favorable position to us as far as consumptive users. We already know that a significant amount of the commission are either vegans or vegetarians. We already know that a significant amount of the commission does not engage in consumptive use activities and does not really understand, comprehend, or really even care about the overall things of what the agriculture community provides to wildlife, natural resources, and habitat management. These are things that we have a chance to be able to participate in and communicate with. So engage cpw.org. Make sure that you try to attend or at least watch the January commission meeting. And then the March commission meeting is the one that's going to probably be very contentious, very tumultuous, and will set the tone and narrative for how a lot of these other things take place over the course of the next 8 or 10 months past March. I wanted to bring something up that, there's stakeholder processes, and there's things that have gone on when conversations have come up over the course of the last 40, 50, 60 years. And for anybody that's played at this game at any amount of time, whether you've testified once, or whether you went and provided some sort of internal written comment, or whether you just were part of a focus group, or maybe you were an armchair quarterback and you sat back and you watched some of these things that you were completely displeased with. There's things that you can do to participate. This particular document that I save things, I'm a hoarder, and I come up with things. My wife says that when I die, she's going to have a lot of newspaper to be able to burn in the wood-burning stove. I told her the color copy stuff doesn't burn that well. But this fact sheet that was produced by Colorado Parks and Wildlife back in 2014, and you can look it up online, and it's specifically Colorado's declining mule deer population and CPW's proposed predator management strategy. Now, this was back in 2014, prior to the Polis administration taking office in 2019. He was elected in November of 18, but took office in January of 19. This particular document references a December 14th commission meeting in Fort Collins, and the purpose of the commission meeting is to act on CPW's staff request to approve 2 predator management research proposals per the commission's 2007 policy on mammalian predator management. Now, keep in mind, during the Hickenlooper administration, Governor Hickenlooper, for the most part, allowed Colorado Parks and Wildlife to manage the wildlife side as they saw fit with some sideboards. But Hickenlooper was also instrumental in merging the two between Colorado Parks and the Division of Wildlife. There was a lot of concern or miscommunication, misunderstanding during that whole process. But this declining mule deer population and CPW's proposed predator management strategy was something that had been going on since 2007, prior to Governor Hickenlooper taking office. The purpose and background: the commission has approved 3 other predator control plans since revising its predator management policy in 2007. Approval was granted in 2011 to remove individual mountain lions preying on translocated desert bighorn sheep in the Middle Dolores River, due west of Montrose, near the Utah border. The commission also approved in 2011 a 2-year proposal to remove mammalian predators in the Miramont Basin about halfway between Telluride and Utah to increase the recruitment of juvenile Gunnison sage grouse. Finally, approval was granted in 2013 to remove mountain lions preying on Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep translocated to the area of the Hayman Burn near Cheeseman Reservoir, southwest of Castle Rock. Now, the interesting thing about this is this was science. This was to turn around and benefit multiple species of wildlife based upon they knew what Parks and Wildlife scientists and biologists knew about predators and what they were doing to maybe decrease or at least not let certain populations of wildlife increase. It goes on to say that mule deer in Colorado are an important species of the state of Colorado and a large number of communities across the state for a variety of reasons, including hunting, wildlife viewing, and associated economic benefits. Although mule deer populations are doing well in some areas of the state, keep in mind, this is back in 2014, their numbers are well below the population objective established for the Piceance Basin, which is adjacent to the Roan Plateau, an area with the largest mule deer herds in the state, and also below objective in the upper Arkansas River Valley, where I live. CBW's population objective for mule deer is approximately 560,000 statewide. The latest example puts the statewide population at under 450,000, CBW is not suggesting that the removal of predators is the solution to increasing statewide deer numbers to 560,000. These two research projects are designed to evaluate the extent to which predation is limiting deer population size in the two specific study areas. In 2013, in response to a continued decline in mule deer numbers, CPW developed the West Slope Mule Deer Strategy. The CPW Commission approved the strategy in December of 2014, and CPW sought public input to develop the strategy, holding several public meetings across the state, facilitated by an independent contractor to ensure objectivity and fairness. Now, the West Slope Mule Deer Management Study and Strategy contained 7 components that address a variety of impacts to mule deer: landscape, scale, habitat management to improve habitat, predator management where predation may be limiting deer survival, protect habitat and mitigate development impacts, reduce the impacts of highways on mule deer survival, movement, and migration, reduce the impacts of human recreation on mule deer, regulate doe harvest, and provide youth opportunity, maintain a strong ungulate population and disease monitoring program, and conduct applied research to improve management of deer populations. CBW will implement each component of West Slope Mule Deer Strategy when and where appropriate as funding allows. The reason I want to bring some of this up is because if you've noticed over the course of the last 7 years since Governor Polis has been in office, there's not hardly a time when a press release or a media statement has come out in some capacity where it does not say Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Governor Jared Polis. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Governor Jared Polis. Not anything in this has anything to do with Governor John Hickenlooper. John Hickenlooper let people manage things as he saw fit. Now, whether you agree with Governor Hickenlooper or not, Senator Hickenlooper, if you agree with him or not, is beside the point. They were allowing the agency to be able to do what they needed to do at the time when they thought it needed to be done. Now, there's still a bunch of these studies going on as we speak. A lot of these findings have been found to maybe not be in the best interest of the governor or the first gentleman's predator management ideologies. CBW's research-based predator management strategy for Colorado Parks and Wildlife is employing some of the top researchers and wildlife managers in the world. And research projects are comprehensive, detailed, and subject to scientific peer review, not to Marlon Reese's peer review. Marlon Reese wasn't around here then. But everything that happens at this point in time before it can be kicked out has to run up the food chain and make sure that there is some sort of oversight of what is said and how it's referenced to where they get their point across, not necessarily from a science side, but from an administrative agenda-driven side. The science side of this, a paper published in 2012 in Mammal Review by Forrester and Whitmer, reviewed 48 studies on mule deer survival and predation from the past 30 years and quantified age-specific vital rates, population growth rates, and causes of mortalities. The authors wrote that the relative contributions of predation, forage availability, and weather to observe deer populations changes remain unclear and controversial. Results of predator control studies remain variable. Predation was the largest proximate cause of mortality in both adults and fawns in all studies, including in fawns during the winter. Pay attention to that. I'm going to read that again. Predation was the largest proximate cause of mortality in both adults and fawns in all studies, including in fawns during winter. Also, the true effect of summer fawn predation and mule deer dynamics is currently hard to identify. Increasing wolf populations in Vancouver Island also caused decline in high-density black-tailed deer population, and the predator removal study that was conducted was successful in increasing deer populations. Now, keep in mind, we didn't have wolves here then. So they weren't talking about what we did with wolves here then. They were talking about just general predation. Maybe it's from coyotes, bobcats, lions, bears. Suppression of both fawn and adult survival simultaneously from predation and other mortality sources can lead to marked and sustained population declines. Keep in mind, we didn't have wolves then. The role of predation in multi-prey, multi-predator systems at varying deer population densities needs further investigation. Hence the science-based wildlife management. But some people in this particular administration, unless their name is on it, they don't want to consider it to be science. Other theories in this fact sheet: ongoing CPW scientific research in the Piceance Basin has revealed that lack of quality deer habitat is not limiting this deer population, contrary to recent claims. Did you read that? It is not limiting mule deer populations. The habitat in the Piceance Basin is not limiting deer population growth. The Piceance Basin in northwest Colorado represents winter range supporting the largest migratory mule deer population in the state. This area has been the focus of research and monitoring efforts since the late 1940s and represents one of the best documented mule deer populations in North America. Due to historic mule deer population declines, the Commission reduced total mule deer licenses in the area by 85% since 2007, and female licenses specifically have been reduced by about 99%. This was back in 2014. Current license allocation in GMU 22 consists of only 590 antler deer and 20 antlerless deer licenses. Hunting is not the cause of mule deer population decline. Unless you ask Marlon Reese, or unless you ask maybe Nicole Rose Marino, or some individual in this administration that does not believe in any sort of wildlife management when it has to do with consumptive use. The rationale for this fact sheet: based upon CPW scientific data, researchers theorize that predation of young fawns in the spring in the Piceance Basin is the limiting factor, and CPW proposes to determine if reducing predator numbers in that specific area can result in increased numbers of deer. With regard to the Upper Arkansas, managers and researchers theorize that predation of adult does and fawns over the winter months have limited this mule deer population in the past. Since 1999, the leading cause of known mortality on mule deer in the Upper Arkansas Valley has been mountain lions. From 2008 to 2012, higher than normal rates of mountain lion predation were consistent with lower adult survival rates. The exact cause of these elevated predation rates is unknown, but they could be associated with lion harvest quotas not being achieved during the time period. Like the Piceance proposed study, insufficient habitat is not considered to be a significant factor in fawn survival rates because biologists have only documented minimal numbers of mule deer and these management units dying of starvation or suffering from malnutrition. Predation on deer by lions and bears is natural, but today's ecological systems do not function completely naturally. Therefore, management intervention is sometimes required to compensate for natural and man-made landscape changes. CPW is not proposing to completely eradicate predators. I want to emphasize that. Nor are sportsmen and women, nor are houndsmen, nor are trappers, nor are furbearer harvesters. We don't want to see anything gone, but there has to be a balance because, as it says in this peer-reviewed document, the studies, that there has to be some balance. CBW is regularly called upon to help resolve human-bear conflicts in Colorado, and these conflicts occur to a large degree because of an ever-increasing number of people, which further alters the natural system. Let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I run a wildlife control business. The conflict resolution side of what I provide is because we have too damn many people doing too damn many things out there that they don't know what the hell they're doing. They decide to feed something, then they gripe when the coyotes come kill their dog. They decide to turn around and hang hummingbird feeders up, which I don't have a problem with. My wife hangs hummingbird feeders. But we get a bear around, we take the feeders down. We don't turn around and call CPW because then the bear got into the feed bunk for the horses because we drew it in with hummingbird feeders. There has to be some common sense and logic when it comes to wildlife interaction. And the overwhelming majority of people don't have the educated base to be able to interact with wildlife, let alone make a science-based decision by supposedly checking a yes or a no box on a ballot or giving a public presentation for an hour and an hour and a half where they get 30 seconds or a minute to be able to give their point because they saw the Domino's pizza guy deliver pizza and he was talking about a red fox down at the golf course or the parking lot. We have a problem here because people think that CPW is the problem. I got into a deal the other day online a little bit with an individual that said that Dan Gates and CRWM and any organization that supports CPW is bad for sportsmen and women. If you believe that, then don't listen to this. If you believe that, then don't pay attention to what we're doing. Because what we're doing is trying to educate the general public on things that are necessary because of too damn many people. The impact of this document states that overall numbers of bears and lions in the population units that include the Piant study area should be minimally impacted and anticipate removing about 1% of the lion population and 2% of the bear population. The predator treatment area represents 6% of mountain lion population management units and 16% of black bear population unit. Furthermore, the proposed reductions are consistent with the current mountain lion management objective in the rural area to maintain relatively low predator densities to reduce livestock conflicts. There again, I agree with that. If you're an anti, you don't, because you don't think that we should have livestock and you don't think that they should be grazing on public land and they should not be compensated on private or public land if they have some sort of depredation. It also states that this area is currently one of 4 mountain lion population management units out of the 19 lion units statewide managed to minimize livestock conflicts. We have a problem with people having opinions about things that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. We have a problem with people thinking that we just started doing this when the model that was created for this over 125 years ago was based upon too many people at that point in time. Too many people that were taking things for granted and not taking it into consideration of what they should be used for or if they should be used at all. They just went and killed it because they thought they could benefit off of it. That's not necessarily the case now. Now, there's benefit to everybody that turns around and harvests wildlife for sure, but it's also an economic driver. And that's what helps sustain the management of the amount of species that we have, not just in Colorado, but the Western United States. Look at Pittman Robertson, Dingell Johnson, the funds, the excise taxes that come in from a federal side to help manage. If you listen to some of my opposition, some of the antis that are out there, they want to reinvent the entire model and rewild the entire landscape. If we had too many people doing the wrong things with little management 125 plus years ago, what the hell do you think we have now? The total number of mountain lions removed during the proposed 9-year Upper Arkansas research project is not expected to differ significantly from the number of lions that hunters would remove from the study area during the same 9-year period if the research proposal was not implemented. But people griped about it. If anything, the overall number of lions removed during the study is likely to be lower than what would have occurred during hunting alone. Lion and bear populations remain robust in the state. The overall number of lions and bears removed as part of this study is very small when compared to both Piants and the Upper Arkansas local populations, and when compared to populations across the state, which at that time Statewide lion population estimate was between 4,500 and 5,500, and the bear population estimate was between 17 and 20,000. Now, I believe that both of those have probably increased exponentially in the last 11 years. However, if we stick with those numbers, and based upon what we did during Proposition 127, and we were utilizing the numbers that CPW had come up with, that's done off of geographical areas, and it's done from a manner of science-driven techniques. But CPW does not know the name and the sex or the representation of each lion in the state of Colorado. They don't know exactly how many bears we have in the state of Colorado. When I hear people talk about they don't know this and they don't know that, well, let me tell you something. People don't know how many members they have in organizations, and people have to sign up and register for that. We don't know exactly how many people we have in the state of Colorado. We have to have tax numbers. We have social security numbers, unless you're an illegal alien. We have to have some sort of documentation to make sure that we're here, and we still don't know how many people. But the antis, the extremists, want to know exactly how many deer we have, how many swift fox we have, to the T, to the final number. We have the opportunity as sportsmen and women to engage in this process. And I would encourage each and every one of you to make sure that you get a chance to do so. And these things are going to continually surface. And what I just hypothesized here off of this 2014 fact sheet is more of an update to say, look, this stuff has been going on for decades and decades and decades and decades. We have commissioners, we have administrations that don't give a rat's ass about any of these fact sheets, any of the documentation, any of the things that have been put forward in the past. Nothing. They could care less because they have an agenda to turn around and stop certain things of what wildlife management, what wildlife science is, and what consumptive use and participation is. I could browbeat this stuff for a month and a half and you still wouldn't get it all. But I want you to understand, this doesn't have to do with furbearers, and it doesn't have to do with beavers, and it doesn't have to do with mountain lions. You can see what's happened over the course of the last 8 years in this political administration, and the way that appointments have happened, and the way that hirings have happened, and the way that there's been undermining this and manipulation. You can see, if you go back, and I've got records and records and documents and all sorts of stuff that my wife, as I mentioned, is going to turn around and probably figure out that she's going to have a big bonfire as opposed to starting a wood-burning stove. We have the opportunity to engage. And I'm asking you to prepare for the 2026 season, during the legislative season and commission season, to make sure that you are helping us support the facts and the driven science, and make sure that we become the reasonable, logical voice of science-based wildlife management, whether you like Colorado Parks and Wildlife or whether you don't, whether you like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or whether you don't. The only other option that we have, ladies and gentlemen, is to turn around and go support the antis. Because we can't do it on our own. We don't set the laws, the rules, and regulations, but we do have input. But the antis have input as well. The antis are trying to misguide, mislead, misrepresent not only the general public, but the General Assembly. And they're trying to force their will, their way, their beliefs, their structure, their ideologies, their methodologies on an agency that has been doing a formidable job with the resources that they have had before them to deal with a state that has grown in population that is just exponential growth. With 90 million visitors and 6 million people in the state of Colorado, I think they do, considering what they have to deal with and considering how many voices they have in the background, turn around and telling them what to do and what not to do. And considering the fact that they have to worry about somebody running a ballot initiative to check a frickin' box that says yes or no. I think they've done a pretty damn good job. The end of this year is coming up. We will not have a podcast on Christmas Eve or the day after Christmas. We're giving our editing team a break. We will have a podcast on the 31st, New Year's Eve. We want to make sure that we're trying to provide as much information, entertainment, infotainment, whatever you want to call it, to be able to give people an idea of where things are going and what things are happening. And we don't have the solution for everything, ladies and gentlemen. And as I mentioned on several different occasions, this was not my call to action or my call of a life to be able to turn around and do a podcast and be able to support an organization that we formulated back in 2016. But that's where we ended up with. It's imperative for us to be able to do that. I'm hoping that you'll continue to support us, subscribe, share, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. That's where we're trying to come up with the information to be able to submit on a daily basis. The podcast is just additive to that. But we've got big plans coming up for 2026. We'll be in our new podcast studio. We've got some great guests that are scheduled up. We'll be able to turn around and formulate a plan to where we can interview people from around the country and around the world. We hope that you appreciate what we're doing. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the data, but we know where to get it. We know how to accomplish it. We know what to do with it. And we're trying to do the best that we can possibly do to make sure that we do the best to save the hunt. Until next time on Through the Gates, which will be December 31st, New Year's Eve. And I think you're going to like that edition. Make sure you stay the course. Aim small, miss small. Spend time with your family. Get outdoors. Enjoy the what Colorado has to offer. And don't take it for granted. Because without us engaging in it, it can be taken away. And when your kids and your grandkids come along and they just know that it's not there anymore, they think it's always been that way. But you're going to have to tell them, no, I watched that disappear. And I don't want you to have to do that. So, keep in mind for January 31st, having any input, anything that's going on, plan the commission meeting on January. I said January 31st, December 31st. Make sure you plan on the commission meeting January 14th and 15th in Denver at 6060 Broadway. Aim small, miss small. And Merry Christmas.
If you're looking to explore your opportunities to hunt out west, maybe try Colorado. If you're trying to get information about bighorn sheep, elk, deer, private land, public land, maybe it's everything that you want to do as far as pack-in trips. Maybe it's just having a pack trip decided for you, and then when you get there, you just hunt out of a drop camp. Make sure you check out the Colorado Outfitters Association. Colorado Outfitters Association here in the state of Colorado has got a numerous amount of outfitters that are members, and they can supply you with whatever you're looking to try to acquire and what you want to do for the hunt of a lifetime. For more information, check out the coloradooutfitters.org and make sure that you let them know that you heard about them with Through the Gates, and let them know that you're trying to continue to save the hunt in the state of Colorado. We always talk about supporting businesses that support our efforts to be able to save the hunt in Colorado. Well, the Colorado Shed Company in Penrose, Colorado, just outside Canyon City, is one of those partners. Colorado Shed has been building sheds in the state of Colorado for the last 10 years and is actually owned by sportsmen and women. They support the efforts of what the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has done, and they also support all the organizations that you're probably a member of. Whether you're looking for small modular type buildings, sheds for your property to store the extra hunting equipment, or maybe just to turn around and put that freezer in for all the meat that you've got, check out Colorado Sheds. They also do pole barns and can do custom manufacturing to whatever your heart desires. She sheds, man caves, it doesn't matter. Check out coloradosheds.com.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.